I'm waiting for at least a couple people to show up. I guarantee that there's going to be a bunch of you that see it after, but it's pretty much something I want to do. I had to prep myself for this. I'm trying to figure out how I get this to look the way I want it to look. Layout. Well, there's two of y'all here. So, to the two of you that are here, I had an idea. And I thought that I should probably clean this up so I don't look like a goddamn bear. So there has been some people that have talked about the kind of person I am and how I grew up and things like that. And so what I thought would make sense was I sat around and I thought about it a little bit. And I thought, why don't I just read you guys the eulogy I wrote about what I think about my father? And it would lay out lay out to you guys and explain a lot about the kind of person I am, because there's a lot of people. There's 2,000 of you guys, and I get emails and questions, and I get messages on Instagram. It's like, your opinions and the way you act. Where does that come from? Is it because you're in the military? And 100% of it is written in this eulogy that I wrote for my father. To give you guys a little bit of background, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and I went home. He and I had come to the decision that it made more sense for me to come home while he was still relatively healthy before he got. I'm in my home office, by the way. This is where you get my emails and stuff from. For me to go back and see him while he was relatively healthy, so my daughter could see him while he was still pretty healthy, and have a good memory, as opposed to spending that money and coming home for a funeral. So my father and I had prearranged this. I probably wasn't going to be at his funeral. But I had also said that I would definitely write a eulogy. Now, I have prepped myself. This is my second glass of vodka, this size. Because this is going to be hard to do, but I wanted you guys to have a little insight into the reason I am the person that I am. And some people think it's from military and from training I received in the military and things like that. And it's not. It's 100% in these 3 pages. So we're going to see if I can get through this without too much more of this. Wow, 6 of you guys. So when my father passed away, I promised that I would write a eulogy. And I wrote it, and I told my sister that when I wrote the eulogy that she had to promise me that the pastor would read the entire eulogy. And there's a reason for it. Our pastor was also my 7th grade science teacher and my sister's high school chemistry teacher, and was a very good friend of my father's. So I made them promise that he, as the pastor, would read it, even with the dirty parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading this, and we'll see if I can get through this. So this is what I wrote as a eulogy for my father's funeral. So my father, what can I say about my father? Now, keep in mind, I wrote this for people that knew my father. To most of you, remember him as Barney, the sheriff's deputy, the one who worked behind the scenes in the jail at night, dealing with the drunks and the nightlife of Coshocton. That's the county seat. To me, he always will be Bill, the scruffy mechanic from down at Saunders Leasing. See, he didn't become a deputy until I was already in high school. So for me, he will always be the bearded and greasy wrench turner with sore hands and busted knuckles. This is going somewhere, I promise. My father was not an easy man to live with, but conversely, been drinking vodka, he was an easy man to love. My father lived life on his terms, and it was better for all involved if you just kind of let him as long as he wasn't in danger of breaking a law. He was not very liberal with compliments or praise, but that made the ones you did get mean much, much more. Almost as though overusing them would detract from their meaning. All of you here know he had a sense of humor that was twisted at best, but his smile and laughter was contagious, as contagious as his humor was controversial. He was a man of passions. that he passed on to his children: cooking, hunting, knives, firearms, and a love of the outdoors that I have not seen matched on documentary television. He had countless people that called him friend, but he told me once that a man could count himself lucky if he could count his true friends on one hand. When I asked him, then why were there so many people that came up to him every time he went someplace that appeared to be his friends, he told me, a true friend is more akin to a brother. That guy that you know that if you call him any time of day or night is going to grab their keys and head your way. And you know that that you would do that for him as well. If you have two or more of those kind of friends, then boy, you're blessed. Then there's my father's well-known hatred of cats. I trust my beloved sister can find any picture demonstrating this properly. Now, my father, for as much as he said he hated cats, he loved cats. And I say it too, but I have a cat. I told my sister after. So my sister has pictures that she put up they put up on the screen of my father with the cat in his lap and the cat on his shoulder and things like that. I trust my beloved sister can find a picture demonstrating that properly. I've heard for years that I am quoting this, and I'm quoting this directly, I will drive off the road to get a cat. My father once told me during a heart-to-heart after I left the military and I was home on leave, that he did his best as a father, but he was sorry for any shortcomings because he really didn't have much of an example to follow because his father was never home and was always on the road as a truck driver. My grandfather was a long-haul truck driver. My father told me that numerous times, that any apologies he could make was that he didn't have much of an example to go by. I can say that I see my peers and I think that the man didn't do too badly. I see others my age and that have never had to struggle to get an approving glance, and they don't seem to try as hard. I see fathers allow their sons to stay home after high school, and they don't seem as driven. My father told me a week after graduation I better figure something out while he was standing in the kitchen door holding an empty milk jug because, and I quote, sorry, Pastor, he was holding a jug and he says, this shit ain't free. You better figure something out. They were hard lessons, but those are the ones that stick and make men, not mice. My father taught us to stand up for what we thought was right, not to be afraid, to fight for it. This means that Sarah and I have received the label pig-headed, that's my sister, by several teachers. Pastor, this was me talking to Pastor. Any thoughts you'd like to throw in on that one? Joking aside, he also taught me that in marriage, you have to be able to walk away from it from time to time and just let the issue drop. Okay, more accurately, on the phone before the day of my wedding, he told me, boy, just remember, you can be right or you can be happy, but you sure as hell can't be both. I learned what marriage is. I learned that marriage is something that you can, not something that you can give up on or throw in the trash. I learned that by watching my father, what it means to take those vows seriously. He told me something when I informed him I was thinking about getting married. This is before I talked with my wife. When I was thinking about getting married, he said, I stood up in a church and told God that I would love your mother for the rest of my life. I meant it then, and I mean it now. If you can't do that, then you're not ready to get married. It doesn't matter who else is there to hear it. God doesn't forget those promises. My father was a religious man. This may surprise a few of you, but he felt that religion was between him and God. It didn't really require a church. He once told me that if you can look at yourself in the mirror and know a good man is looking back at you, you're probably doing okay. Strong. Oh, here we go. Strong is a word I would use to describe the man I called my father. I'm not talking about physical strength. This is a true statement. He had a sheer strength of will, the likes of which I have never seen. You couldn't change his course once it was set. It was just, that's the way it was going to be. While this could be an infuriating trait, it was also one of the things that held his family together through the tough times. But with that being said, the man was strong. I learned that lesson my junior year of high school. I came home from school. I don't remember exactly what transpired, but I was so angry, I kicked the front panel out of a screen door. Yeah, that was a bad day. My father tried to remain calm, to his credit, but when I started cussing up a storm, he hit me. Open-handed, mind you. I earned it. To this day, I have been in my share of bar fights when I would get hit in the face, and I would always compare it to that slap my father gave me and think, get back in there, squid. You've been slapped harder than that. And then I'd laugh, which is rather off-putting to your opponent. So now we go back full circle to Bill, the greasy mechanic. I told you this was going someplace from the time I was old enough to remember. My father worked at a small diesel garage across the street from Clow. It was Saunders Leasing, and then it became Ryder. He worked there for 20 years, a full career in a lot of industries, but he was a father of two with no illusions of retirement in his 30s. And that's when it happened. The moment when Bill the mechanic was set on a path that become Barney the deputy sheriff. One day, on the day he was given his 20-year ring, his boss Paul called him to the office and explained that the company was doing a bunch of cutbacks and that they were letting personnel that had the most seniority go. Seniority usually equals more job security, but also equals more pay, so you know the rest. Yes, this is still going somewhere. My father did not decide to end, that it was the end and give up. He didn't want to uproot his family, so with his overpowering will, he decided to set a new course. He learned a new set of skills. He went to work. He started at the bottom all over again and went from the most respected wrench turner in the county, and he was, to the newest rookie deputy sheriff there was. He didn't let his pride get in the way. He just did what he had to do for his family. This was a lesson I learned, but I didn't know I'd learned it until I wound up being... Actually, I'm sorry, wait. This was a lesson I did not know I had learned until it wound up being the most valuable lesson I ever got from my father. In 2009, I was deemed medically unfit to continue my military service. 17 plus years. It was actually just a couple months shy of 18, which would have put me in safe retirement. I was basically told, yeah, you've got a lot of seniority, but that means we pay you a lot. Sound familiar? I was given a reduced pension and all of my medical benefits, but you can't live on $1,100 a month. So I came home, I looked at my wife and new daughter. She was brand new. I steeled my will and I set a new course. I learned a new set of skills. I didn't let my pride get in my way. I went from Petty Officer Emler, one of the most respected 5-inch gun system mechanics in the U.S. Navy, to Mr. Emler, security specialist, the junior guy in the shop. And it was at that moment that I got that job and told my wife that I was going to be tough and the pay was going to be less and things were going to be tight, that I realized how truly I am my father's son. There are other things that I want to say, but there just isn't time. I could keep you here for days on end describing my father to you, but if you're here, the likelihood is you already know. On top of that, I don't want the pastor to have to compromise himself by reading a lot of it. Suffice to say that if you were lucky enough to know my father very well, there is no way you're not a better person for it. So, I truly wish that there was a way I could be there for all of you, but that just isn't. I wish I could shake hands with all of you and see the love you had for him. I take comfort in the fact that I was able to come home while he was fairly healthy with my daughter, so that Gizmo had those, that's what he called my daughter, had those memories. I will treasure those days for the rest of my life, for they truly were meaningful days I have ever spent with my father. Over the years, to an outside observer, it would seem I didn't spend much time with my father, but I came to realize that, like his praise, since it was few and far between, it meant so much more when I did get it. When I explained to folks out there that there's just no way for me to be there and that my father would understand, they protest and even argue, even after explaining responsibilities. I take a page from his playbook, I just tip my head back, and I try and explain. Stop trying to explain, and I take a deep breath, and I sigh the word mouth breather. And I know he smiles. I will cry, I will mourn, but I will not let this be a sad moment. Let this day be a celebration of his life, because the man I know is in heaven watching us, drinking a beer in a tattered flannel shirt, reading a book, just waiting for an excuse to come and haunt one of us for letting this create a lasting sadness in our lives. Take comfort in knowing that Bill, the mechanic, Barney the deputy, just take comfort in knowing that, like Bill the mechanic, Barney the deputy has set himself on a new course and he'll be fine, like always. That's the eulogy. And so, for those of you that know me, This is why. This is what led to the person that I am. And the reason I'm doing this is one of the questions in the giveaway asked me a question, and it was, what was the most monumental point in my life? And it was my father. And so, with all the questions that I've had about, the attitudes that I have, and, how did you give up a $70,000 a year job to do this, to sharpen fucking knives? That's where it comes from. So, not trying to be all emotional and things like that. It's hard, but that's where everything that I am comes from. It doesn't come from the military. I had a very strong base to begin with. And so that's basically where everything that you see in my videos, the blunt honestness, I don't pull punches. If you don't like my videos, don't fucking watch them. That's where that comes from. That was all groomed into me for the time I was my daughter's age. And so, now, if there's any question as to why the person I am, refer back to said video. So, I guess I didn't drink enough vodka to get ready for that. I was hoping. But it's only been a year. It's been a little bit better than a year. And in that year, I've started making knives. I have gotten to where I'm sort of supporting my last 2 months I have. I set my will, and I did not realize what I had inherited from that man. It might not have been monetarily significant. I didn't really get it. I didn't get anything. That's property. But what I actually inherited from my father is so much more valuable than anything physically that you could hold. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to do that because I thought you guys deserve that to see. And hopefully I'm instilling these same things in my daughter. So, all right, guys, that's it. This is the end of the day. I'm not doing anything else. You guys take it easy. Let's see. So, guys, yeah, I wasn't going to read any of those, but I appreciate it. And I appreciate everything you guys do. That's why I did this. It was painful, but it needed to be done because I never read it out loud. But now, a drunk front, I didn't check the weather real well. I got a sneaking suspicion that a drunk front has blown in. I'm off of here. You guys take it easy. Don't be sad. He'd haunt us all. Promise, swear, hand to God he would. So, take it easy.